Welcome back to Hardball. You don't need to be a weatherman to tell that it's how hot it's been getting outside, but if you feel that those long, hot days of summer and those unseasonably warm falls, winters, and springs are more frequent than ever, you're not wrong. Last year was the warmest ever recorded, and the 13 hottest days on record all occurred within the last decade and a half. Take a look at what happened in Greenland over just a couple of days earlier this month. NASA used satellites to study ice melt in the country and found 40% of the ice sheet thawed on July 8th. That's about average for a Greenland summer. But just 4 days later, 97% of the country's ice sheet was melting, the largest area in more than 3 decades of satellite study. So we've got a lot of facts here. And this is exactly what people warning against global warming have said would happen. And yet, despite scientific consensus, many Republicans in Congress deny climate change science. Now an environmental advocacy group is aiming to take down 5 members of Congress who deny the link between human actions and global warming this November. Navin Nayak is the Senior Vice President of the League of Conservation Voters, a great organization, and David Corn is an MSNBC analyst and author of Showdown. Well, maybe this is your showdown, is it, Navin?
We really hope it is.
Can you knock out these 5 people? I remember the old Dirty Dozen days when the League of Conservation would nail a dozen people and say, we're getting rid of you bums.
We still do the Dirty Dozen. What we're doing now that's even different is not only are we getting the worst environmental records, we think things have gotten so bad that now's the time to actually go after these 5 people who don't even believe in basic climate science. It's not that they're just voting wrong. These people actually think this is a hoax or think it's a myth. And it's impossible for us to actually solve these big problems as long as we have people in Washington that don't even believe that it's happening.
But, David, most of them seem to do the game that we're watching Romney play, play agnostic. It hasn't been proven yet.
Yeah, well, we've seen a real shift, I think, about 4 years ago.
From him.
Well, from him, but in general, it's, with Al Gore's movie and back when Obama was elected, it really seemed like there was a consensus. You had Newt Gingrich on the couch with Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. You had, I think the mainstream of the Republican Party,
why'd they change?
They didn't want to do anything, but they kind of believed it. They didn't argue
what
the point.
Changed?
George Bush stopped arguing the point either as well. What changed was, I think, the Tea Partyization of the Republican Party. Their base moved so far to the right, and one of the items they had was anti-science. It was either anti-evolution or anti-climate change. And Mitt Romney, who as a governor talked about regional solutions,
you
had to drop it.
You do this for a living. I want a fundamental, honest answer here. What's with this Planet of the Apes attitude towards science? It's not just towards the environment. They don't openly say they're pigs. They got this attitude of total, it's like in the movie, they don't like science. What's that about?
I mean, here's the biggest thing that's changed in our mind is that just the unprecedented money by oil companies. I mean,
explain that to viewers and me. Why do oil companies oppose any conversation about climate change?
Oh, because obviously part of the problem is our dependence on fossil fuels. And if we're going to get serious about solving global warming, it means we've got to get serious about transitioning off of fossil fuels. And so oil companies, coal companies,
Koch brothers
are pouring $200 million into Mitt Romney's campaign and getting him elected. No doubt he's flipped his position.
Well, don't they worry about the planet that they and their children live on, their grandchildren? Aren't they worried? This is the only planet we got right now.
Not as much as their third quarter profit earnings or how much they're going to make at the end of the year. And so I think the campaign we're going to run is going after these 5 unabashed deniers and saying, unless they start to feel some pain and get defeated.
This is a tough question. How do they put together this piggishness about the climate with their religious commitments, whether it's Jewish or Christian or whatever? There's a love of this planet because it's the only one we have, and it fits into it comes from every religious belief. You don't destroy. We are the stewards of this planet. You don't destroy it.
There is a group of evangelicals who support climate change action, just following your train of thought there. But, you can look at, a taxation policy, and you can look at what Jesus said about helping the poor. You don't see that always happening in the Republican Party.
Well, you're widening the attack.
Well, I am widening the attack. But I don't see any reason why they should care more about the climate as opposed to social justice.
Because they do come from a political party, Theodore Roosevelt, who began the conservation, who stood for it against all kinds of awful people. Let's take a look. The League of Conservation Voters, which you represent, named New York Congresswoman Anne Marie Burkle the first of what he calls its Flat Earth 5 global warming deniers in Congress targeted for defeat. And she's one of them. She looks like to be number 1. Here's what earned her the distinction from a 2010 debate against then Congressman Dan Maffei, her opponent again this time. Let's watch.
Is there global warming?
Oh, I think that, Dan, unfortunately, a lot of the global warming myth has been exposed. This cap-and-trade bill is a tax on energy. That's all it is. It's a tax on energy, and it's based on some specious global warming. That, whether or not there's real global warming, has not been determined.
You know, they used to say of Reagan, he only studied an issue long enough to agree with the right-wing position. He didn't want to study another hour or two because he might find another point of view, right? People like that, they're not dumb. Why do they make the decision to reach that they don't understand something because that's, what, convenient politically?
Yeah, I mean, I think here's what we're going to prove with this issue and with this campaign is that what we're going to show is that whose side people are on. When you take a position like that, you're not interested in the average American, or you're not interested in solving problems that Americans care about. Washington Post poll came out, 77% of Americans want Congress to do something about this. When you take a position as a denier, you're basically saying, okay, I'm with the oil companies, I'm with the coal companies.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm going to go wider on this one. Yeah. This scientific denial, you know, one of the reasons why many of the religions have succeeded is because they reconcile their religious belief with understanding science. They don't fight science. Right. What you're getting today from these right-wingers is science itself is wrong. Evolution, and thinking about evolution, something we studied in high school biology, you can't believe that. So why are they getting so wide in their denial of the realities of life? Why are they going so far?
I think it's because it's inconvenient. I also think it's because...
What, evolution's inconvenient to think about?
I think to their religion, I think, but I also think it's global warming thing about that is inconvenient, but I also think it's a reaction. I think there's partly reaction to Barack Obama and the Democrats, and they've made it a cultural issue. It's like the liberal Northeastern elites believe in climate change, and they're using that to put their values on you. And so they're trying to make this almost a populist issue. Those scientists, those policy people in Washington, those academics.
It is Planet of the Apes. It is Planet of the Apes. It's Luddite thinking.
And that's exactly how they're pursuing
we should be proud of our science. We should be proud of the fact that this country wins all the Nobel Prizes for science. And
not all, but we win a lot.
I'm an American. We win a lot of them. Don't come up against us when it comes to thinking. Everybody in the world will science. Anyway, thank you, Navin, Nayak. Good luck. I can say that. Good luck.
Thank you.
Keep an eye on these people. Anyway, David Corn, thank you as always. Republicans continue.